Welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisin, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And for all my listeners, we have John Ovrom on, and John is joining us from Coronado, California, just down the street from me. Most of my listeners know I do this podcast. They also know that I'm involved in succession planning. I got to know John through the succession planning business and introduction through various, actually it was an accountant that introduced me to John. And I've always been impressed with his business acumen, his ability to put the dots together. And while this particular podcast is really more about your business, it's probably the most important podcast about your business that we could speak about. Good day to you, John. How you doing?
Doing wonderful, Greg. Happy Thursday to you, buddy.
It's good to have you on Inside Personal Growth and to speak about something that you and I obviously believe is probably the biggest, most important thing that a business owner could do or plan for. And I'm going to let the listeners know a tad bit about you. John has written a book, which I'm going to hold up here. There it is. The book is called Exit and Answers, and this is version 2.0. He had a 1.0 version, but this is the 2.0 version. And he's the founder of Exit Consulting Group. And he shares his expertise in richness on a firsthand experience inside this book based on working with hundreds of business owners over the past 15 years. He explores and provides insights on all the things he wishes he had known before he sold his first business. This book dives into the buying and selling process, both to the external buyers as well as to family, key employees, and business partners, highlighting common pitfalls business succumb and to the opportunities for businesses to implement value drivers. The book outlines how to attract multiple qualified buyers to your door. If you want to know more about John, his company, and all of the great staff that he has there, just go to, the book website is exitananswers.com. His website for the consulting company is exitconsulting.com. So either of those will get you there. Is that correct, John?
Or no, it's exitconsultinggroup.com.
Exit Consulting Group. I left off the group part because actually when you push on your website, it actually goes to exitananswers.com on the book itself. So for the book, we'll put the link to exitananswers.com. Great book for you to get. We'll also put a link to Amazon because the book now is on Amazon for you to be able to get that book. And I think it's a great starting place for people. And that's where I want to start this conversation, really. And I want to make it a dialogue because more important that the people that are listening are really kind of listening to not only understand better what they could do, but more importantly, to gather knowledge and information. And so go to John's website to do that as well. John, you've consulted business owners, as I said, 15 years. It's in your bio. You mentioned in the introduction that there will come a time when we're all going to exit. And we are, whether we die and exit from a death, or we exit through some great planning that we did, and we hired somebody like you or myself to help that. Can you briefly discuss with our listeners about the ways an owner can exit their business successfully? Now, there's a lot of ways to exit unsuccessfully, and we could talk about those as well. And I've seen many of those happen, fire sales and auctions and all kinds of things that people get involved into because they overcommitted themselves and had to get out of the business quick. So let's talk about those successful ones and maybe those not so successful ones.
Well, thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for all of our years together, as well as, the partnerships that we've had. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. I mean, we're both very passionate about this. So I can sit around and talk with you for a long time. And I know we could give out a lot of stories to a lot of your listeners on wins and losses and things we've seen and things we wish they would do and wish they didn't do. But, we're all here because we care. And that's why we're in the service provider side. I would say that there's kind of 5 exits that we start with. You either do an inside sale, which is going to be your key employee, family members, a partner. somebody that already knows the business. An outside sale, right? A strategic, any one of their competition, right? You can do a liquidation, which is still an exit. I mean, you literally can just shut your doors and do that. You can do what we say, die at your desk, which is, I don't want to deal with this. And we've worked with owners that literally say, this is not going to be my problem. I'm going to die at my desk. I'm going to leave it to somebody else to deal with. That is still an exit plan. All we say is
not a great one.
Not a great one, but we just say, can we talk to your wife and can we talk to your kids? Talk to the state, because they're the ones going to deal with the exit. So we'll work with them, but it is an exit.
Yeah, it is.
And then the other exit is hire someone to run the company. So many owners feel like an exit means that they have to sell and leave. And our concept is an exit is you leaving the business and then deciding what to do. Those are two separate things, as an employee or as an owner. Most business owners think they're both the same. And in reality, in exit planning, those are two totally different steps. You exit as an employee and or you exit as an owner are two different conversations. But so many owners say, I can't do one without the other. If I own it, I have to be there, or, I don't want to be part of it. And so there's just a lot in the what is an exit and how to be successful in that is defining what is your exit and what do you want out of it personally as an employee and you as an owner. And then how do you set those strategies up to be successful?
And I think that brings us to kind of the psychology of succession. We might as well lead on with that. When a business owner reaches a ripe old age of X, and it's different for everybody, they start to think about their life. They start to reflect on, is there anything else that I should be doing besides coming here every day and managing employees and finances and so on? The biggest stressor that I see, and a lot of these people, even after we finish the succession plan financially and all the rest of the stuff, is like, hey, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go?
Right.
Do you want to address that a little bit? Because that could be a good kind of jump off point for the following question here. It's really, like they're sitting there and they're contemplating, am I going to play golf every day? No, I don't really want to do that. I'm not going to play bridge with my wife every day. I don't like that. I'm not going to Las Vegas and gamble my money away. So what do you advise people? What would you say?
So when it comes to figuring out your exit, we throw them into three buckets. If you're going to Vegas, you pull the slot machine and you get the three little things to get the perfect exit. Is the owner ready? And is the owner emotionally ready? Is the business ready? And then is there a market that actually wants to buy your business? And you try to align those three items up. When it comes to owner readiness, it really becomes, what am I going to do next? What I have got so much value out of my business, and I have associated who I am and my relevance. And probably the biggest term that we hear from owners after the sale is, I don't feel relevant anymore.
Right.
And it's true. I mean, they're very successful in their business. They have everything. They made all the money. They transitioned it. The key employees are good. They're happy with everything. Their life is good. And they still sit and go, I just don't feel relevant, because that was who my friends were. Those were my peers. People would call me. People would ask me questions. And it's a reality, particularly with Generation 1. G1 founders have really associated their business and personal value in their business because they're all in. And so acknowledging it is the first step, and then finding something else that will give you the passion.
Right. Right.
If you don't have it, you're never going to leave because you're scared. You don't know it emotionally, but you've seen it, Greg. The people struggle with they'll use price as a reason. You have a bunch of reasons why not, but internally, they don't know what they're going to do with their day every day. And they don't know how to fill their batteries up. They're still, try to get Tom Brady off the football field. Right. He's competitive. He wants to win. How do you take a Tom Brady? How do you take a LeBron James? How do you take these people that are phenomenally successful, have gift, and they love what they do, and this is their life, to say, you're done, walk off the field, walk off the court, even when you're doing really well. And it's really an emotional process that we have to deal with. Now, if it's death or divorce, or the company's starting to fail, or, AI is taking over their business, or they want to move, or they want to do, there are good reasons that make it easier, but still the emotional process of leaving your company is by far the biggest hurdle in being not having a successful exit.
It is. And it's one of those that a good succession planner is going to address with you, whether it's still sitting on the board of directors and playing some active role, whether it's having a small role in the company where you're still advising as a consultant to the company, whatever it might be, to keep what you call the relevance. And I think that's important. And that is part of what a good succession architect will do. Now, you state that most business owners want to know how much they can receive for their business. And that's true. That's one of the first things they want is what's the valuation. But what's most important element is not the gross selling price, but the net after tax value they're going to take. Can you talk about some of the considerations of businesses might want to take into account when selling or transferring their businesses to get the most out of the business?
Sure. I would say most brokers, investment bankers, transaction people always pitch sale price. How much can I get for your business? How much can I get for it? And for me, price is ego. Price is, I sold my company for this much. But in the end, if you don't get paid for 10 years, and then the company goes BK and you don't get all the money, it doesn't matter what you sold it for. What matters is how much money did I actually receive? And then how much risk was associated with it and how did I get paid? So one is price, but price is what we call ego. What matters is how much cash do I get in my pocket when the deal is done? How much does it cost in a transaction for transaction fees? What's the value of those fees? How much do I have to pay in taxes from the state and the Fed, depending on where you live? And then what can you do from a strategy pre-close versus post-close? Because there are pre-close transactional opportunities of where you live, where your revenue comes in, what state there is it in a trust? There are creative solutions that people smarter than I can come up with and can give you ideas on pre-tax, pre-close, and then post-close. Whether you do charitable remainder trusts, you do sales deferred trust, there are other strategies on installment sales that might give you an opportunity to defer or even be exempt from some of the taxes. So the game is, as the business owner, no one told me this. They just said, hey, I can sell your company, go for it. And I didn't know what that really meant. I didn't know what cash-free, debt-free. I didn't know what earnouts were. And it really, for the listeners, they need to be aware of how much do I get at the end.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. How many of your business owners that fall in that 5 million and under, and I know this isn't the biggest part of your market, but when we say $5 million are doing installment type sales, promissory note, installment sale, waiting for the money, collecting it over a period of 5 years or whatever it might be from a key employee who bought the business. What comments would you have about that? Because there obviously is some risk there, right, associated with that. But do any of your transactions in that realm, or is everything you're dealing with much larger than that?
So we do a lot of transactions between, our minimum is $1 million sale price. So we do a lot of 1 to 5s because we're in San Diego and there's still a lot of smaller $2, $3, $4 million sale price, which is good money, and that's San Diego's a small market. We're not Orange County, LA, San Francisco. We're playing with, good, just regular mom and pop service-based manufacturing machine shop, contractor type people. When it comes to deal structure, anything over $1 million, there's always some seller carry. If you're going to be selling your Main Street USA flower shop, restaurant, shoe shop, for a couple $100,000, you usually get all cash. But you start getting $1 million on up, and particularly when you get in SBA financing, SBA likes to have an owner, the seller have some skin in the game in order to make the deal. So you'll get 90% down on the smaller deals. and then a 10% seller carry for a couple of years to 5 years, depending on what SBA is requiring. But those are usually loans and they're usually fairly strong, but you get 90% down. When you get into the 5 million on up, really the part that gets strung out is how realistic is the sale price associated with the revenue?
Right.
And if the revenue is stable and you've got a recurring revenue stream and you are just a recurring revenue model, then generally you can get most of your money up front. Mm-hmm. If you are project-based, service-based, if you're a dentist, doctor, lawyer, CPA, contractor, any of these where your relationship depends on the future, and because it's project-based, you're going to have to, if you want a good price, you want a better, higher sale price, they're going to have to pay you over a period of time to make sure that that revenue stays.
Yeah. So, well, there's so many things, there's so many just packed into that answer that we could talk about.
I know.
At length, but let's leave it at that. I mean, we'll kind of move forward here, but the point is, folks, go get the book, contact John. You can have these kind of discussions more in depth, because no matter what you do with succession planning, there's always the next question, and then the next question, and the next question. So you personally have sold businesses that you owned, and you learned that it takes time and patience to sell a business. How long can a business owner expect that it would take them to sell or transfer their business effectively from the time they start planning? So let me preface this.
Sure.
To the time they actually exit, because some of the gigs I've worked on a couple of years. And I know you've been involved in that too, shoring business up, getting the right financial, getting the right people, making sure there's somebody there with the ability to take it over and run it. So just generally comment on that as a general time frame within maybe categories, that flower shop, that's not going to take very long to do. I'm really talking about businesses that are much larger than a flower shop.
I would generally, we're going to overgeneralize because that's what we have to do. I would generally say the sale process, if you called today and you said, I'm ready to sell, I would tell you plan for a year before the transaction's closed, and then plan for at least 1 year continuation agreement for consulting, and maybe 2, depending on the sale price. So minimum 2 years. If you want to be done, paid, no longer showing up and I'm done. If it's an inside sale and you want to sell it to your kids or a key employee or an ESOP where there's a lot of seller financing because they don't have any money, or let's say your partner wants to buy you out and he's buying you out at the 50%, he's not giving you any money. Those typically take 7 to 10 years to pay out because they got to pay you back with after-tax cash. And so it's a minimum of 5, and I would say usually 7, and depending on how big the deal is, it could go to 10 years before an employee, a kid can pay you back at a decent multiple.
Yeah, and the thing you've got to do there, and I'll just add this to it, is you've got to forecast that period of time, the 5 year, 7 year, to make sure that there's enough cash flow in that business to not only sustain the payment that's going to be made, but also so that there's enough profit for the person buying the business to say this was worth buying, right? Because I took an increase in pay and my equity was going up at the same time, right? So you want to look at the balance sheet too.
That's a great point, Greg. That's exactly right. You're 100% right on.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, I think you could be in trouble, because the reality is you may not get fully paid out. You have a list of takeaways from the first chapter and all the subsequent chapters as well, which I think is great. It's it's a way to kind of summarize a chapter and just get to the heart and essence. It's a great summary. Can we discuss some of the takeaways that a business owner should be considering if they're planning to exit their business? So in other words, generally there's takeaways, everybody, on every chapter of the book. But there really are kind of general takeaways that you could take from this. And that's what I'm asking about here.
From the overall perspective of exiting your business, the general takeaway, there's probably 3 points. One is it's going to take you longer than you think. It's going to be harder than you think on you emotionally, because it actually it's an emotional process to let go. This is a child that you just raised, and you've grown this thing up, and you've been a helicopter parent. And this person's trying to move out and go to college and get married to somebody else. And you're like, but no, I want you to stay home. And, you're finally becoming fun. And, now you're an adult, we can do things together. And the adult children are going, that's cool. We're good. We're going. And the parents. And so they just want to hold on, even though the company's outgrowing them. Right. And, so it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, and you need help. Don't try to do it yourself. This, it's a complicated transaction, and there are a lot of tax consequences, and there's a lot of deal makers out there that are professional, and they will take advantage. All the people that are always calling all our clients, Greg, that are like, hey, Greg, I just got this person. They said they're interested. Greg, what do you think? And you're like, guys, we haven't even taken it to market. We haven't been prepared. Yeah, but they said they would give me a great offer. And you're saying there's no such thing as a great offer from someone who doesn't even know your business, and you haven't given them anything. These guys are professional leeches that are trying to take advantage of an opportunity of an owner who's just done that day. Because we all, as business owners, know there are days where we just sit around and say, what? Why?
Yeah, well, and the last thing I'd add to that is that, whatever expense you're anticipating between attorney's fees and tax advisors and consultants and so on, you may want to think about, as a percentage of the total, what are all of those fees going to be? And, some of that strings out over a period of time. And I'm not going to say it's always going to be more than you anticipate, but it probably is more than you would anticipate. And the reason is it's very complex. Like John said, this is not like something you just take lightly. You've been working at it 25 years, and there wouldn't be anything else that you would do. It's not like having a house that you sell after 25 years, has a ton of equity in it, you put it in escrow, and it's gone. There's too many moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts.
And so, Greg, the other point on the value that I tried to get a hold of these clients, particularly with $5 million down low in sale price, is the owners are so involved in the business that the opportunity cost of them taking their hands off the steering wheel of their own business, trying to do something for their first time and trying to learn stuff, the company starts to slow down. And the revenues go down, or we miss a job, or employees move away, or we lose a client bid. And the opportunity of just staying in your business 100% focused, like that's all there's a significant value. You will lose hundreds of thousands of dollars if you spend a year or two trying to do something you've never done instead of focusing on growing your business. And all that, because you'll lose it either in losing of cash flow, or you're going to lose it in value because of the multiple on the value of what you've just lost. And they just don't understand that cost.
Well, and I think it's important what you said earlier, about 15 minutes ago, and you referred to it in the book as an annuity. I think if a person's not really willing to let go and wants to stay on the board and wants to find someone to run their business, and collect the chips that keep coming off of the business, the annuity payment, whatever it is, the $400,000, $500,000 a year. That can be an exit strategy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it is something to think about. Now, you speak about lifestyle versus investment. And most of these businesses, you say, are lifestyle businesses, which they are. You mentioned a reality that they are lifestyle businesses, although a lot of owners would disagree with us. But the reality is they still are. Can you speak with us about the differences and the questions a business owner should be asking of themselves regarding this lifestyle versus investment kind of business?
Sure. The best is a visual. I would tell you an owner-operated lifestyle business is where this is a wagon wheel with the owner in the middle and everyone reports to them. They've got their hands in everything. Maybe not personally every day, but everybody knows they better go by Greg to make sure that this gets done. And Greg has to be part of knowing what's going on, from sales to marketing to ops to finance to HR. Like they are the glue and they are the middle. Versus professionally run, which is more of an org chart where you actually have delegated middle managers that have authority and responsibility that report to them, and all the employees don't report to you. The only ones that report to you are your C-suite and that's it, or one or two people, and everybody else runs everybody else. It's probably the most visually clear way to explain to an owner that a professionally run company is where it's not, if you pull the owner, the whole thing doesn't fall apart.
Right.
And that's how I would define it.
Well, and it's a great definition because, when you're going to duplicate, you need to have those managers in place.
Right.
And those departments need to be responsible for their own P&L. In other words, what I'm saying is, okay, you can have direct expenses and indirect expenses, and you deal a lot with contracting as I do. So, as these are being allocated over the budget, it's real important to understand that if you do have the big of a company and you have those midline manager people, that all they're doing is you have the top people reporting to you on all the progress that's being made in those departments. That is an investment type of business.
Sure.
If you're involved in every one of those departments, that's not, as John was saying, and that's the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah, and Greg, that's what we're calling, I mean, the biggest discount, the biggest haircut buyers do, they'll give you the multiple, but then they'll take a discount because of the owner involvement. Right. And the owner risk. They'll say, sure, I'll give you that multiple, but because the owner's so involved in it, I got to do a haircut because what if my employees leave and my vendors leave and my suppliers leave? And then I got to hire 3 people because they're working 60, 70 hours a week and been doing it for 35 years. And I got to hire 3 people to do that job. I mean, this isn't the same company post owner. So then they get a haircut on it. For sure, the biggest haircut we get is owner engagement.
Well, do something for me. And it wasn't one of my questions, but many owners out there aren't going to understand some of the things we're talking about. Many of them do. But when you recast numbers, talk about a recasting of numbers, because a lot of people in this financial world will ask them to recast the business's profitability without them. What have they been taking out of the business? What is the cost for them in recasting? Speak a little bit, a few minutes maybe about recasting, what it means, and how important it is in considering the real value of the business.
So mainly on the smaller businesses, because bigger businesses, people don't run as much personal through. Smaller businesses, because it's a lifestyle, they'll have their wife's cell phones and their kids' college and their medical and their trip to whatever, right? So what they're basically saying, what we have to do is we try to take their profit, start with their profit or loss, or take their profit at the end of the year. And then we do add backs for what we call sellers' discretionary earnings. And those are things that the owners are running through that if they weren't there, we wouldn't pay for.
Right.
So we got to add back all of the, the scrap metal that you get cash for, right? Or the travel, the trips that you're putting through that really aren't there, that you added some other people to it. Well, you can call it what you want to call it. The meals, the auto, the boat, the kids, this, the, hey, I got some work done at my house, had them run it through here. Hey, I had my CPA do my personal and also run it through the company. I had my trust get updated and I had them bill my company. All those things that if you're not there, we add back in to come up with what a real business would do if you didn't have all of your personal run through it. And then that gives you your SDE, your seller's discretion. That's how much you actually make between your salary and your 401ks and all of your car allowance. And all this is literally what you're taking out of this business. That's the number we want, because that's the number that buyers will actually be buying, because that's what you're really running. That's not what your K1 looks like. That's not what your W2 looks like, but that's really what your company runs through. And that's what we mean by recasting, is tell me how much you're really making out of the company before you start scraping it out through salary, through distributions, through benefits, through expenses.
Yeah. And that's a great way to explain it. You speak about inside sale versus outside sale.
Yep.
Obviously, inside sales to a key employee or to somebody like that. Outside sale is to a company that wants to acquire. Can you discuss the pros and cons of each type of those kinds of sales? Meaning, hey, I'm gonna sell this to a key employee, let's say, who actually has no ability to qualify for a loan.
Well, they have my last name, so they must be qualified to run the company. I mean, by definition, they're qualified.
Yeah. So just speak with us some of the pros and cons, if you would, about those two. Because look, if I'm sitting there saying I'm going to sell to a key employee, or I have a lesser offer from maybe an outside company that wants to buy it. And somebody's trying to make a judgment as to, hey, I want to be nice to the key employees and I'll hold the note and I'll collect my note over
Sure.
however long it is. I just want to know what you're thinking about pros and cons.
So my advice to owners that are looking for an inside sale to a key employee or to family or to an ESOP, not if it's a business, not if it's a partner buyout. So if you and I are partners, Greg, and we're 50-50 and I sell to you, you already know the company, that's different because we've been partners. But on an inside sale to a key employee or family, that's, a generation below, the game is only about legacy. Do it because you want the legacy. Don't do it because you think you're going to make enough money out of this, because you're going to be disappointed, particularly when it comes to family, because you see it. I said, if you're going to sell it to your kid, and what happens in 5 years at Thanksgiving when he doesn't make the cut because the economy turns every 10 years and we know it, and he's made some decisions or she's made some choices and they're going down a different path and they're not paying you and they can't afford to pay you. How is Thanksgiving going to go? How's the time with your grandkids? Because they're going to be resentful for you that you sold it to them for too much money. They can't afford it. You're going to be mad at them for not making payments. Your wife's going to be mad that she's not able to provide, and then she doesn't get to see the grandkids. Make sure that if you're going to do an inside sale to family first, understand it's not about the money. It's about the legacy. It's giving them the opportunity. Key employees can be a little different, but just it takes so long for them to pay you back that you just have to stay on board. So if you want to stay on board and you want to keep working for a salary, I would say stay on as long as it is for you to get paid, because once you leave, the company is going to tank, and just be prepared because they're going to buy it from you because they don't have to put any money down. The employee is going to come to you and say, I'll happy to buy the company from you, Greg. Whatever profits we make, I'll give you 50% of those for the next 10 years. And I keep the rest. And well, what risk are you putting? You're putting any skin in it? Well, no. Well, then why would I do it? Well, I'm telling you, don't do that. But if you wanted to, just be aware that there's a lot of value for the sake of a legacy, and just treat it that way.
And I would agree that is probably the only reason you would do
the
that.
only reason you do
that you want that legacy. Now you speak about the timeline associated with planning a sale of business. We talked a little bit about it.
Sure.
We said 2 years. You state that most business owners should take between 3 to 5 years before they leave the business. Speak with our listeners about what it takes or why it takes this long to plan and execute on the sale of their business. Because a lot of people would be saying, hey, I'm ready to sell now. And you're saying, no, you're not ready to sell now. We did the readiness assessment.
Right.
The readiness assessment doesn't tell us that you're ready to sell, and especially not at the highest price that you potentially might be able to sell it for, again, and the terms you'd like to sell it for. So
because of the 3 trigger points, owner readiness, business readiness, and market readiness, that really is what's determining time. Our opinion is set your company so it's always ready to sell. Run your business so whenever you're ready and the market is ready, you can sell it. Most businesses, particularly the smaller ones, the $1 to $5 million sale price ones, it was just an owner walks in and goes, okay, I'm done. It's when the owner's ready. And then the business hasn't been running correctly. They haven't managed their cash flow. They, haven't putting money aside. They've just bought some big piece of equipment. They have a bunch of debt. They just took out a big PPP or an EIDL, and there was no strategy around it. And so it costs them money. If you can come up with what's the win, what do you want? Do you just want it to be a legacy? Is it a sale price you want that you need in after-tax cash? Have you worked with your financial planner? Do you know how much expenses you're running through the company that you've been taking pre-tax that you're now going to have to take post-tax? And do you have that? Do you have medical insurance in the future? Like, how are you going to do this practically in the world of, from this point forward, you're good, like you're set.
right.
And it's the evaluation with your financial planner, the evaluation with your business broker, your transaction person, it's your evaluation with your CPA. It's getting everybody in a room and saying, what's the win? Getting it with your spouse and just saying, how much is enough? And how do I drive towards that? And then what does my company look like for that value? Because I had someone say, I need $3 million in after-tax cash. And I just said that based on your company, you're going to have to triple the size, or, and you don't have it in you. So instead of that, why don't you're making $500,000 a year, work for the next 3 more years, take that money out and reinvest it in something else, and then sell it for $1.5 million, which is what we could sell it for. It's still a good exit. You still got the number you needed. It's just the ego says,
Right.
I want money. And so you got to get out of, it's just a lot of processing that they just don't think about. And the more that you get them to think about it and understand that there is a goal here, and what is that goal, the longer we know what that goal is, the better we have a chance of achieving.
It's a lot of assessment and readiness assessment, as we just said. And the challenge with it is as you said, and when you look at, is he personally ready? Is the business ready? Is really cleaning things up. I'm going to call it scrubbing everything, like the cleanup that has to be done to make sure that everything is ready. And I like your point about, look, the business for most people in this range, this $5 million range, that is their biggest asset. If you look at their house, you look at their cars, you look at their 401k plan or their IRA accounts or other real estate they own, they'll unequivocally, that is the biggest asset they have, right?
Right.
And you're looking at this asset saying, how am I going to now extract cash from it if I'm not there? Meaning, what are the mechanisms that will trigger that?
Great
and
point.
I think it's so important. What are some of the things that you find happen that need to happen in kind of cleaning up a business when you go in? Let's talk about, doing some house cleaning. What are typically the things you find that most business owners aren't thinking about? Or if they are, you find them and you see there can be more efficiencies.
So we call those value drivers, right? What are the things, Greg, that you've been there? We go through it and kind of go, what are the things that can drive this company higher value or lower value? So things that we would look at is customer concentration, right? Do they have one customer that's 80% of their business? Really, anything over 15% becomes a risk to a buyer and they're going to discount it. So do they have good customer concentration? Do they have good customer diversification? Product or service diversification. Is there only one product? They might sell 5,000 SKUs or do one service, but if they did 3 services or 5 or different products, which ones are they? The more diversification they have, then the better it is. And, so it's customer concentration, vendor concentration. If they only have one key vendor in a particular area and they change their pricing, everything changes because they're a reseller of that product. Employee, and then really their org chart and how does their middle management work? Again, owner involvement is a big haircut. So we really spend time on job descriptions, evaluations, how are you doing on your training and promoting people? I'd also say a big haircut we're getting right now is IT, right? A lot of the 60 and 70-year-olds that are selling for 5 million around, they haven't invested into the technology and don't really want to be honest. This is how it's always worked for the last 30 years. And, and they're leaving money on the table, but they just don't have the energy, desire to convert to an inventory management system or a sales management CRM, or get my books into the latest program management tools that are available out there. They just go, this is how I've always done it. And they'll leave it to somebody else. So, IT, sales, operations, which is their org chart and how that works, are problem, and then their financial records. By far, our biggest challenge is crap in is crap out. If the owners aren't keeping track of their numbers and they're not giving us trustworthy financials, how can a buyer take that to a bank or take that to an investment group or take that back to their CFO, who's the no person in every deal, right? And, and show them within confidence that these are my numbers. They tie to my sales tax, they tie to my income tax, they tie to everything, ties and foots and balances, and everything you see is legit. And they spend the time to do so instead of, I don't know, that's my bookkeeper, they did it. Or I don't know why that balance sheet's that way. I already know how much I need. I already know how much I have. And they don't spend the time with buyer's eyes. Put the glasses on, wear the buyer's glasses and say, would you buy your company the way this is?
That is probably the best advice you've given. And I think that in the way that I'd say that is, if you were to look at it, you need to look at it with those goggles on, the
Yeah.
buyer's goggles,
Yeah.
because what's happening is, you're missing all of the most important stuff that needs to be cleaned up,
Right.
and that stuff being cleaned up is the stuff that's going to drive value. You called it value drivers. It's going to drive the value up.
Right.
But more importantly, it's going to give confidence to the buyer to say, hey, this guy has run his business properly. And if it takes you 2 years to get that done, all
Right.
of that stuff that John just said, then that's probably the best 2 years you ever spent. Right.
100%. Because remember, it's a multiple on the money that you make. So if you get a 3-time multiple and you made $100,000 change, you just sold it for $300,000 more,
right?
Because you took the time to do it. Plus, it actually ups the ante that someone actually might want to buy it because they feel confident that it actually is going to be a business that can survive without you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is the confidence that they have that the business can sustain its current sales and grow. Does it have the ability to grow? What kind of industry is it in? What are we doing that's unique that other people don't do that possibly gives this business more value than others? Who are our competitors in the market? All of those kind of things. Now, throughout the book, you provide lots of takeaways from each of the chapters, as we said. If you were to summarize these takeaways, which you gave me 3 earlier,
sure.
But now, what are the key things that you would leave the listeners with regarding need to know and the research that they might want to do before selling their business?
The number one challenge we have in selling a company is understanding what's the trigger for them to sell. What is it? Is it health? Is it a number I need? Is it, so typically what we want to know is why, is it that you're just done? It's just the timing. I'm just done. Like in COVID, we had some people just going, I'm just done. I got enough retired. I've got enough money. I'm doing fine. I'm just done. I just want to be done. Sometimes I just don't want to put any more risk into it. I've invested enough. I have enough stuff. I just want to get out because of risk. Sell it for what we can sell it for. Some people are, this is my liquidity event and I need this dollar amount. Some people are, hey, my partner's leaving and I'm not ready to go yet. So I want to buy him out. The game is why? Because there are so many, the owners say they want to do this, but so many people also want to lose 20 pounds. So many people want to travel more, support my wife and show her more love. I mean, there's so much that people want, but the reality is not many people do. And it's not very many can do it successfully. And the number one key to the success is that they go in it with their eyes open and get educated on what it means. How much do they need? What is it worth? What's my risk in my business? Evaluate the challenges. How does a buyer look at it? Get educated. Just plan and learn, which is what you and I do, Greg. I mean, we're just out there trying to educate. 80% of our time is just education. 20% of it's the transaction.
Right. Very little of it.
And very little of it because the transaction is great once you've done the education. Everyone knows the word, they understand what it means, and they're emotionally, mentally, financially prepared.
Well, and I think it's the kind of Simon Sinek question is the why. You just said that.
Yeah.
What's that driver, right? Has their health changed?
Yep.
Have they had a change in maybe a divorce or a separation or an issue?
Yep.
There's all kinds of triggers. Let's call them triggers. Have you lost key employees that potentially you're trying to find replacements for, but it's driving more stress in your life because you can't find the new people to fill the positions? Whatever it might be, you find at some point there's a trigger that gets people to want to talk about it. And
we break it out into 2, Greg. We break it out when we do the interviewing, those triggering events. We break it out as, is the goal for us, this is an internal evaluation when we meet with them. Is it out of cause or is it out of convenience? Because if it's out of cause, then we can actually help them. My husband passed away. I haven't kids. My partner's leave. Like there are reasons where they have to. Like there is a reason I'm going to. Then there is out of convenience, which is, I just want to retire. I've been done. I think I have enough. And then that's a different element when it comes to pre-qualifying our clients, because we know for cause, they're going to get out.
Yes. Definitely. And for convenience, you don't know.
Don't
Good
know.
chances are they're going to stay on the board and they're going to work in the business.
Yep.
For all my listeners, we've been on with John Ovrom. Exitconsultinggroup.com is the website that there'll be a link to. The book is called Exit and Answers. Navigate your business exit like an expert. This book really is a fire starter. I don't mean literally put it in the fire. I mean, it's fire starter for your thought process, your thought to get you thinking. And I think that's the best thing that John could have done, was to provide a book that he says exit and answers. I think the answer is within inside of them. But the reality is that this book helps drive you to understanding more about what might be causing that, right? What you do.
Absolutely, 100%.
So John, thanks for being on Inside Personal Growth. And
thank
spending
you,
some
Greg.
time with the listeners. It was a very dynamic, good podcast. And I think for the people that listen to it, they'll get a lot out of it. So
I appreciate it, Greg. You're awesome. We love working with you. You're passionate about the same thing and helping all of your clients. So thank you for what you do, and hopefully we can change some lives.
We certainly will, for the better, for most
exactly.
certain.
Yep. Thank you again, Greg.
Okay.